Hi everyone. I'm making this recording from room 335 at the Holiday Inn Hotel, Heathrow Airport in London, outside London. I've been in here in this room for exactly a week now, and although I've been leaving kind of jokey messages on social media and posting them up here on YouTube, I wanted to leave kind of a more serious, reflective message to anyone who's interested in what it's like. Just to recap, I had been in Cape Town for several weeks in South Africa, and it entered the red zone, the dreaded red variant zone. And so, although I was trying to fly up to Belgium, where I've been based on and off for the last several months, I was not able to get onto my flight from Istanbul, the connecting flight. And I was bustled aboard this flight to London, Heathrow, and the next thing I knew, I was in kind of solitary confinement, because that's what it is, albeit in a hotel room, with guards out in the corridor and no access to the outside world except the internet and phones and Amazon. So I've been reflecting on it quite a lot, because it's the second time in my life, although the circumstances, thank God, are so different, that I've had my liberty taken away. And I'm not angry at all. Of course, I knew that I would be ending up in a quarantine hotel coming back to the UK. But I'm fascinated by what being alone, and being really alone in a physical sense, although virtually I can communicate with people, but I'm fascinated by that experience. Several people have sent me questions, and I'm glancing down at them here, and I thought I might just answer them as a way to kind of reflect on what I've been going through. Out of all the questions, I've chosen 3 or 4. The first one is, can you describe your experience in the quarantine hotel in London compared with Pakistani torture prison? And just to recap on that, about 15 years ago, my film crew and I, 2 guys, David and Leon Flamholk, were heading towards Afghanistan through Pakistan to do pre-production for a documentary on the search for the lost treasure of Ahmed Shah Durrani. We were arrested in Peshawar a week after the London bombs, the 7/7 bombs, and we were walking down a street, and I was being filmed, and the next thing we knew, I mean, I'm laughing about it now, the next thing we knew, we were manacled, chained, stripped virtually naked, and we ended up in a torture prison nicknamed locally the Farm. It was very different, to answer the question, from this experience. For a start, I'm just glancing back in my head to the memory that never really leaves me. My room, my cell, it had bars, and it was maybe 3 meters by 3 meters. It was pretty small, and there was no mattress. There was kind of a mat that I slept on concrete. There was graffiti left by former inmates. There was a fan, because it was the summer, that was switched off for 1 hour a day in the afternoon, in order for its mechanism to cool down. And there was, of course, no luxuries at all. There wasn't any soap and towels or blankets or sheets, obviously. And the food was quite grim. Everything was quite grim. And the lights were never turned off, the strip lights. And every night I would be taken out and interrogated in this torture room, sometimes blindfolded and manacled, and sometimes not. And at night they were killing people. So that was the Pakistani torture prison. The the Holiday Inn Heathrow has a bed and Wi-Fi and Amazon, and yes, it's got a window that doesn't open, but a window all the same, and there are no bars. So it's very, very different. But the similarity that strikes me, which interests me very, very much indeed, is that my liberty has been taken away. And liberty is something you don't know about. It's like air. You don't know about it until you don't have it. You only realize that you've got air all around you when you're underwater and you don't have air all around you. And then you maybe panic because you can't breathe. And the loss of liberty and the loss of human contact, real human contact, is quite a scary thing. It's something that in this situation has been affecting different people. I can hear down the corridor, every so often you hear someone screaming or shouting out because they just can't stand it anymore. I guess maybe they've been here longer than me. I've been here a week, and I think I have another 4 or 5 days. A week is a long time just by yourself in solitary. I don't see anyone else. When food is left for me outside, I get a knock at the door. One came a few minutes ago there, and when I open the door, I can't look left or right. I can't step out into the corridor because I'll be arrested or pushed back in, and I don't see anyone. To be honest, I'm pretty surprised that although there is this forced quarantine going on in Britain, I'm pretty surprised that, in this time of understanding and appreciating mental health, that nobody has called me, not even once, to check on me from the government or from social services. I am being treated as someone who is contagious and someone who is at fault. And that does surprise me. It doesn't please me at all. And I'm not grumbling that I have to pay, close to 2,000 euros for being in here. But I'm pretty surprised for other inmates, incarcerated people, that they are having to, go through this as well without their mental health being checked on. The next question, someone has asked me, what have I been thinking about? And this is a great time to think. It says, what have I been thinking about in my spare time? Such a great question. Often in life, I say to myself, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful to have a week or two roped off in which I could just ponder life, the universe and everything, and plan projects and come up with stuff. And to a large extent, I have been doing that. I'm lucky I've got a computer, and I've got yellow Post-it notes like these, and I've got some books. So what I've been doing is planning, thinking, and really regrouping, recalibrating myself, and trying to get a handle on where the next stepping stones of my life will be going. It's strange in a way because this experience is happening at quite a turbulent time in my life because my children have grown up, Ariane and Timur, and are beginning lives of their own, which is so wonderful and exhilarating for all of us. But it's also a time in which I'm now middle-aged, in which I can look forwards and I can look back. I do a lot of looking back and trying to make sense of the plot points that have taken place over the last 25 years. I remember when when I was about 20, I suppose, my father used to talk a lot about his life, career, and books. And I could see, or I can see now, that he was maybe doing the same sort of thing as is going through my head. He had a big chunk of life behind him and had no idea how much life he had ahead of him. In his case, actually, it wasn't so much. It is something that can preoccupy you. But more important, I think, is considering life in a bigger way, considering goals and projects and kind of the human experience, my human experience, and the experience of those who are precious and important to me, and all kinds of other people. I love trying to put my head in the mindset of what I call zigzag think. And it's a project that I've been working on for about 4 years. And what I'm trying to do with it is to reposition myself into the mindset of what I call the default setting of humanity. It's the mindset of every child that has ever been born and every human who has ever existed in what would be called a primitive society. I've been astonishingly fortunate to travel and live in different places, and I've experienced fatherhood and the wonder of watching children do things in a way that our ancestors, every single one of them, would have done things. And as someone who's traveled and lived and been with, tribes and indigenous peoples around the world, the Machaginga in Peru, the Samburu, northern Kenya, and even in a way, cultures such as Afghanistan, which have not been so affected as the Occidental world by this insane need to try to solve problems in the most straightforward, linear way. I have really pondered this idea of zigzag behavior, which is the greatest thing of all time. And it's one of the reasons the world is losing the plot in terms of climate change, because we have deviated since maybe the Industrial Revolution or before from methods that all of human history had championed. A third question. It says, you're in isolation by yourself in that hotel room. If you could teleport someone in here, where, who would it be? I think the answer is pretty simple. Anyone at all. I'm guessing it's anyone at all. For me, I think it would be Richard Francis Burton, the great 19th century polymath, swordsman, writer, linguist, adventurer, all-round kind of extraordinary character, totally politically incorrect. And that is certainly something that he's been, denigrated for in recent times. But I think being stuck in here with Burton would provide the greatest conversations that I could ever want. I wrote a novel, the first novel, called Hannibal Fogg and the Supreme Secret of Man, a few years ago, and I'm currently writing the sequel, the first sequel. And Hannibal Fogg was very much based on Burton. He was capable of extraordinary thought and ability, and he was a man who did whatever he did through what I call zigzag think. So I'd like Burton in here with me, but I like the idea that I could teleport him in and teleport him out at will. Last question. if I could travel from anywhere right now, again, teleporting, I suppose, anywhere on the planet, where would it be? Again, one firm thing comes into my head, a landscape. I feel more privileged than you could ever know to have experienced it over many years of my life. And it is the great Rift Valley in Kenya. I can see myself, as I'm saying this, standing as a 19-year-old at the top of the Rift Valley. If anyone knows it, there used to be a few stalls selling sheepskins and and blankets and stuff, and you could look down, you still can, down across this astonishing and awe-inspiring view to the furthest limits of the horizon, the world curving away. I'm getting chills down my spine thinking about it. There used to be a tiny pinprick of white down far away, and it was told to me once that it was a satellite receiving station. It was tiny, tiny, and it just gave scale to the whole place. When I was studying in Nairobi at university there in the mid-80s, we used to go down into the rift, down to Narok and then onward, and we were affected, my friends and I, in this kind of profound, almost primeval way, that the Rift Valley, it was almost like, it's a cliche, but it was the navel of the world. It was this experience as much as it was a place, and it was peppered in a very populated way with extraordinary people, Maasai and animals. You'd see a giraffe strolling from nowhere to nowhere, and something just flashed into my head, being down at the rift once and seeing a Maasai lady walking again from nowhere to nowhere, and how stupid of me to have ever considered it that way, that she was nowhere and she was going nowhere. She was everywhere and she was going everywhere. And I was with these friends, and we had a cooler, and in the cooler there was some ice, a big chunk of ice. And just before we set off back to Nairobi, one of my friends said, let's give the old lady, the ice. And I shrugged and thought, okay, yeah, maybe it's useful to her. And I remember handing it to her. We all thought that she would be thrilled by ice because you can keep things cold and it's this wonderful thing. She was terrified, and I remember her screaming, what is this, the devil? Of course, she had never touched ice, a big block of ice. There is no snow in the Rift Valley, and there's certainly no refrigerators out there in the middle of everywhere. So I think if I could teleport myself anywhere right now, it would be to the mesmerizing, remarkable, magical expanse of the rift. Thank you for watching this, and please, everyone who's watched it, never ever take your freedom for granted.